He looks determined without being ruthless. Something heroic in his manner. There's a courage about him. Doesn't look like a killer. Comes across so calm. Acts like he has a dream. Full of passion.
You don't trust me, huh?
Well, you know why.
I do. We're not supposed to trust anyone in our profession anyway.
Knock niggas out the box all the time. Niggas know my motherfucking repertoire. Yeah, motherfucker. Straight up. I fuck your whole take care, B.I. shit. Yeah, bust it. Yo, G.I. nigga. Now yo, what up, yo? Time is running out, it's for real though. Let's connect, politic, ditto. We can trade places, get lifted in the staircase. Word up, peace incarcerated, Scarface related style, attract millions. Fans, they understand my plan. Who's the kid up in the green land? Me and the RZA connect. Blow a fuse, you lose. Half-ass crews get demolished and bruised. Fake be frontin', hourglass heads niggas be wantin'. Shutting down your slot time for pumping. Poisonous sting, which dumps up and act chunks. Raise a heavy generator, but yo, guess who's the black Trump? Dough be flowing by the hours. Woo, we got the collars, scholars. Word life, beats the power in my whole unit. Word up, quick to set it, don't wet it. Real niggas lick shots, peace, Connecticut. Now yo, what up, yo? Time is running out, it's for real though. Let's connect, politic, ditto. We can trade places, get lifted in the staircases. Word up, peace, incarcerated, Scarfaces. Chef for shine like marble, rhyme remarkable. Real niggas raise up, spend your money, argue. But this time it's for the uninvited. Go ahead and rhyme to it. Big nigga, mics is getting fired. Morphine chicks be burning like chlorine. Niggas recognize from here to Baltimore to Fort Green. But hold up, but what be tasting like thrower? My mom roller, drip to death, whips rolled up. You never had no wins, sliding in these dens with Timbs, with Mac 10s and broke friends. You got guns too. What up, son, do? Wanna battle for cash and see who's son's who? I polywax, jack, smack rap niggas, you facts. Niggas lyrics, you whack, nigga. Can't stand unofficial, wet tissue, blank busts, scud missiles. You rolling like Trump, you get your meat lump. For real, it's just slang rap democracy. Here's the policy, slide off the ring, plus the wallabies. Check the status, soon to see me at Caesar's Palace eating salads. Be meeting Mike, sending keys to Dallas. I move rhymes like retail, make sure shit sell. From where we at to my man sell. From staircase to stage, minimum wage. But soon to get an article and rap page. But all I need is my house, my gat, my act. Bank account fat, it's going down like that. Important French, but let me speak Italian. Black stallions wildin' on Shaolin. That means the Allen is Staten. And niggas carry gats in. Mad police from Manhattan. Now yo, what up, yo? Time is running out, it's for real though. Let's connect, politic, ditto. We can trade places, get lifted in the staircases. Word up, peace incarcerated, Scarface. I do this for barbershop niggas in the plaza. Catching asthma, greatest stick and gun flashes. Well dressed, skating through the projects with big ones. Broke elevators, turn the lights out. Stick one upstairs, switch like a chameleon. Hit Brazilians, pass the casualty your children. Lead a building, niggas. Yo, they be folding like envelopes under pressure. Like Lou Ferrigno on coke. Yo, Africans denying niggas up in yellow cabs. Musty like fuck, waving their arms. The Arabs sit back, cooling like Kalu was on rocks. On the crack spots, rubber band rap. All my knots, few bitches who fuck dreads. On Sudafeds, pussies hurting. They did it for a yard for the feds. Word up, cousin, nigga, I seen it. Like a 27-inch Zenith, believe it. Now yo, what up, yo? Time is running out, it's for real though. Let's connect, politic, ditto. We can trade places, get lifted in the staircases. Word up, peace incarcerated, Scarfaces.
We Japanese still. You can cook in front of your family like a Japanese meal. It's just soup to hibachi and none of you niggas can stop me. Can't help but watch me. So look, bro. Shout out to my brother Kevin Popel. shout out to my brother because it's been a long time waiting, and I promised to do this video for that brother right there. And now we're here to talk about Haplogroup J2. So today is going to be a Haplogroup J2 Appreciation Day. This haplogroup and this people group has been involved with several different civilizations and groups: the Etruscans, Israelites, Minoans, the Romans, the Mycenaeans, the Anatolians, and early European former group. So there's a vast stretch of time in geography that these descendants and progeny have trekked on the planet Earth, and they left their stamp, just like most people groups have left their stamp on Earth. It's very fascinating because a lot of the stuff that we read about, a lot of people fantasize about being associated with. J2 actually was associated with. I know Afrocentrics, especially like Without History and there's different channels, they love to bring up the Etruscans and they love to bring up the Minoans, and they try to paint them as an autochthonous African group that migrated to these regions. But that's not really the case. The autochthonous Etruscans and Mycenaeans and Minoans would have been of G2, you know. So that's just what it is. Second Exodus says Haplogroup J, the bloodline of Japhet, who were prophesied by Noah to dwell in the tents of Shem. I have no issue. I take no issue with that. Um, but as I was saying, these groups here, very vital to world history, very influential to world history, and J2 played a major part within these groups. So we're gonna get into it. I got the cheat sheet here, man. We're gonna go straight to Wiki because I don't want to bore y'all with a lot of the technical talk. And the Wiki gives you a condensed form of some of these papers. So this is the Wiki dealing with the Etruscan origins. And it brings up this paper here that was published in 2019. So it says a 2019 genetic study published in the journal Science analyzed the remains of 11 Iron Age individuals from the areas around Rome, of which 4 were Etruscan individuals. 1 varied in Vallgrota from the Villanovan period, 900 to 800 BC, and 3 buried in the La Montanara necropolis near Civita Vecchia from the Orientalizing period 700 to 600 BC. The study concluded that the Etruscans 900 to 600 BC and Latins 900 to 500 BC from Latium Vetus were genetically similar. And I just want to talk about that point because a lot of people try to discount the European influence, the Anatolian influence in favor of a sub-Saharan African influence of these people. And these people are not sub-Saharan African. These people have the genetic components of the people around them there because they've been there for a minute mixing with R1b carriers and other carriers as well, different mitochondrial DNA that's floating around the region. We're going to get to that here in a minute. It says genetic differences between the examined Etruscans and Latins were found to be insignificant. The Etruscan individuals and contemporary Latins were distinguished from preceding populations of Italy by the presence of 30.7% steppe ancestry. Their DNA was a mixture of 2/3 Copper Age ancestry, which is your early European former, Western hunter-gatherer. Etruscans having approximately 66 to 72% of that, and Latins has 62 to 75% of that. So when you look at these markers, as we're about to see, is going to be J2. They're very much so involved with early European farmers in the Neolithic transition period. So when you go into that period, you're going to see people like Tails' ancestors, G2, being in the early European regions, ancient Europe regions, also being in places like Greece, also being on the islands in the Mediterranean region, the Aegean Sea. You will see that during that time period. And even up to the present, you still see J and G in these populations today. It says their DNA was a mixture of 2/3 copper each. Well, we read that. Um, 1/3 step related ancestry. The Etruscans got about 27 to 30%, and Latins about 24 to 37%, with the early European component mainly deriving from Neolithic era migrants to Europe from Anatolia and the Western hunter gatherer being local Western European hunter gatherers with both components, along with that from the steppe, being found virtually in all European populations. The only sample of Y-DNA extracted belonged to haplogroup JM12, J2B, L283. So as you can see, J2 is playing an important role here with these Etruscans, but a large majority, as we're going to learn later, that was found in a later sampling were also of R1B. And just to make a quick side note on that, because there are videos on YouTube that have spread, known to disperse misinformation. These are the people there. And this does include African American ancestors because African Americans are, again, a hodgepodge. So you do have African Americans that do have several and various R1B clades, some European mitochondrial DNA there. So we're not discounting that African Americans do not connect to these people in some type of way, and there's not any genetic overlap. There is because again, African Americans themselves. We're talking. What are we talking about? We're talking about ancient Europeans. African Americans themselves share that. You share the same Y-DNA and mtDNA signals as do regular European or what you would call quote unquote white Americans or whatnot. So there is overlap there, and there is shared common ancestry there. Just let that be noted. It says here the only sample Y-DNA extracted belonging to haplogroup JM12, J2B, L283, found in an individual dated 700 to 600 BC, and carried exactly M314 derived allele, also found in a Middle Bronze Age individual from Croatia, 1631 to 1531 calibrated BCE, while the four samples of mtDNA extracted belong to the haplogroups U5A1, HT2B32, K1A4. So these are pretty much European women here, European groups here. Therefore, Etruscans had also steppe-related ancestry, despite speaking a pre-Indo-European language. I also want to point out this before we continue reading, because what most people do with the Etruscans is they go to images like this, the tomb of leopards. As you guys are going to see on the screen. To the right of the screen is the tomb of leopards. And it will say, see, there are darker skin variants here. So therefore, these are sub-Saharan Africans or just Africans in general. And again, we just gave one of the Y chromosomes and four of the mitochondrial DNA that was associated with the Etruscan burial. And as we see, they were all early European farmer related. They were all they had steppe ancestry, not associated with any sub-Saharan migrants. In that variation. And again, it's not saying that there aren't any sub-Saharans today or people that live in those regions today or any African Americans today that don't descend from these people. But you have to understand that these people themselves are not ultimately sub-Saharan. Anyway, you guys will get put in the blender on this and tricked back by certain YouTubers and people that love to spread misinformation and sometimes disinformation when it's done on purpose. So anyway, the famous tomb of leopards. I'm pretty sure you guys have all seen this. These are J2 carriers. These are R1B carriers. These are haplogroup H markers on the female side. These are T markers on the female side. These are European peoples. So what? They may have had a darker variation of skin, a darker gradation of skin color. That does not tell you the whole story. That does not tell you where these people come from. You go further enough in time, all people descend from darker skinned populations. All of them. No matter what branch of the phylogenetic tree that you may fall on, if you go back far enough into antiquity, especially when you get into Neolithic, Mesolithic, and Paleolithic, the entire planet would have been brown or some variation of dark skin. That's not Afrocentric. That's just, the natural history of humans. Um, so just because you see dark skinned variants of people in frescoes and murals and depictions does not automatically associate them with what we call sub-Saharan Africa or Western Central Africa or Nigerians or something of that effect. I have to keep stressing these points because this is within popular discourse to teach this way. Someone has to dismantle it. So that's what we're going to do in various episodes here. Anyway, so let's go back to the wiki and giving us a condensed summation of these papers. So a 2021 study by the Max Planck Institute, the universities of Florence and Harvard, published in the Journal of Science Advances, analyzed the Y chromosome, mitochondrial DNA, and autosomal DNA of 82 samples from Etruria, Tuscany, and Latium in southern Italy, Basilicata, spanning from 800 BC to 1000 AD, including 48 Iron Age individuals. The study confirmed that in samples of Etruscan individuals from Tuscany and Lazio was present the ancestral component step, and the same percentages found in the previously analyzed samples of Iron Age Latins, and added that in DNA of the Etruscans was completely absent a signal of recent admixture with Anatolia or Eastern Mediterranean, concluding that the Etruscans were autochthonous and they had a genetic profile similar to that of the early Iron Age Latin neighbors. Again, what does it mean to be autochthonous? I mean, they're originally there, they arose there, in and around that region. So there's no need to postulate a sub-Saharan African origin of these people, like what has been being spread, popular discourse on the internet. There's no need for that. Both Etruscans and Latins belong firmly to the European cluster. 75% of the samples of Etruscan male individuals were found to belong to haplogroup R1b, and this should have been expected. As we read in the earlier paper, they had step or steep related ancestry, which we know is associated with the Yamnaya peoples, and the Yamnaya people had a high prevalence of R1b. So, and again, that doesn't exclude people, no matter what racial category you're in, what ethnic group that you may fall into. It does not eliminate that, these may be your ancestors. Just understand that you share these ancestors with people that are white, people that are Italian, or Greeks, blah, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, Anatolians, Turkians, all these people, you share it with them. Some people are trying to make, ancestry exclusive to one social category or one racial group, and that's just not true. As you can see, we read earlier, J2 was in this group of Etruscans, and now we see R1b being in this group of Etruscans. It says especially R1b P312, its derivative R1bL2, whose direct ancestor R1b U152. You guys have to excuse me, I'm a little under the weather. It says, while regarding mitochondrial DNA haplogroups, the most prevalent was largely H, followed by J and T. Uniparental marker data and autosomal DNA data from samples of Iron Age Etruscan individuals suggests that Etruria received migrations rich of the ancestral steep or steppe component during the second millennium BC, related to the spread of Indo-European languages, starting with the Bell Beaker culture, and that these migrations merged with populations of the oldest pre-Indo-European layer present since at least the Neolithic period. But it was the latter's language that survived. A situation similar to what happened in the Basque region of northern Spain. The study has also concluded that the samples analyzed show that the Etruscans kept their genetic profile unchanged for almost 1,000 years, despite the sparse presence of Etruria of foreigners, and that a demographic change in Etruria occurred only from the Roman imperial period, in which there is arrival and intermixture into the local population of ancestral components from the Eastern Mediterranean Sea. Analysis of samples of individuals who lived in the Roman imperial period and those of the medieval age also suggests that the genetic landscape of present-day central Italy was formed largely around 1,000 years ago after the barbarian invasions and the arrival of Germanic Lombards, and Italy contributed to the formation of the gene pool of the modern population of Tuscany and So from there, we're going to go to haplotree and look at a few samples in this region associated with Italy and Sicily. So early Bronze Age, about 4,250 years before present. You see a J marker there. You see another J marker there as well. Then you see the European mitochondrial DNA T2. So these people are very, very much so autochthonous to this region. They do trace back to this region. J2B here in mitochondrial H12, about 1,095 years ago. Another J2B sample with an H1 variant, 3,173 years ago. J2B also been again 3,000 years ago, 3,100 years ago. So they were in this region, and as you can see, Italy, and it's labeled Etruscan as we just read. You see the J2B marker there as well. So it's the J2B family and people group has been, in and around this area known as Italy for quite some time. As you can see, 4,000 to 3,000 years ago, we see them lurking and migrating and trekking this region. More recently, you see it there in Italy. About 2,000 years ago, you see it there in the Imperial Rome period. In J2A, you see in Sicily, early Bronze Age, 4250 years before present. And you just see more J2A there. This is the oldest one, I believe. It's 7,146 years before present in the Neolithic in Italy around Rome. So J2 has had a long trek and period of time of being in Italy. All right. Italy, early Bronze Age, see again another J2A. Italy again, 1550 years before present. There's a bunch of J2 there. Look, 7,216 years ago, J2A was there. 4,658 years ago, you still see it in Italy. So these peoples have been there for a long stretch of time. With that being said, let's go to the supplement of the paper that was being referenced earlier. The origin and legacy of the Etruscans through a 2,000-year-old archaeogenomic time transect. And we're going to go down to the family clusters that was found in the ancient samples. And the reason I want to go here because you do see a E1B1B marker and it's calibrated to 600, 766 in the Common Era. This marker came from East Africa, and what this shows is that people were migrating in long distances. Coming, and they did they studied this individual's teeth and could determine that he had a diet that was conducive or associated with what East Africans would have ate during that time, meaning he spent his early years in East Africa, didn't move, and he was mixed with these people. So the autosomal DNA here looks similar. As you can see, first degree relative. So this person is probably his daughter. That's mitochondrial DNA H35. You also see the J2B marker here, mitochondrial W6, calibrated at 670, 775 years in the present. Then you can start seeing the autosomal breakdown here. Central Italy Etruscan is majorly Anatolian Neolithic. Western hunter-gatherer, as we read earlier, in Russian Yamnaya. Central Italy Etruscan also looks Central European. A large component Anatolian ancestry. Italian, Etruscan, African, as we can see here, was the E1B1B. It's largely Anatolian Neolithic. And you just see that's the same thing, but in the Imperial and the early medieval, it's the same thing being repeated over and over again. And as you can see, the Y haplogroup breakdown in Central Italy from 800 to 1 BCE, out of the 27 individuals, majority will be red, which is R1B carriers. And you do have J there. As we ran earlier, the Etruscan mix in Central Italy is there, and they do have a J2 marker there as well. In the imperial time, as we see, we had a lot of influx and migrants of J2 and J markers in general. As you can see, an increase in the number 9, you see more J markers comparable to the R1b markers there as well. So these people were in that region. That's the point. Anyway, let me go now. All right, so from there, we're going to move off the Italian. So we proved and validated that the haplogroup J2 has an ancient presence in Italy and within the Etruscans, within the early Latins. We've already proved that. Let's go to the Minoan and Mycenaean peoples. So we're on page 54. This is the supplement of, go all the way up real quick so you can see the paper. The genetic origins of Minoans and Mycenaeans. Let's get back to where we were. So the haplogroups found in the Minoan and Mycenaean regions. The Minoans, we found J2A, J2A1, G2A. Shout out to the tail twins. The tail twins also share this ancestry. Mycenaeans J2A1 as well. So the Mycenaeans and Minoans, as you can see, we have J2 and G representing this. Go down real quick. And we're going to read the discussion here. Our results highlight the importance of haplogroup J chromosomes during the Bronze Age in mainland Greece, Crete, and Anatolia. In contrast to the early Neolithic population that were dominated by haplogroup G2A2, shout out to the tail twins, this is dealing with your ancestry. We cannot exclude an earlier presence of haplogroup J chromosomes in the region, but we note that the large population sample from northwestern Anatolia, we discovered a single J2A male which did not differ in autosomal profile from other individuals in that population. By contrast, 4 or 5 individuals from the Bronze Age in our study belong to haplogroup J. Both Caucasus hunter-gatherers of Paleolithic to Mesolithic time depth belong to haplogroup J, as did Mesolithic and Chalcolithic samples from Iran and a hunter-gatherer from northeast Russia. Haplogroup J and especially J2 chromosomes are today common in present-day Anatolia and Greece, including the mainland and Crete. It was previously associated, based on its present-day phylogeography, with the diffusion of Neolithic farmers into Europe in its J2 and J1 clades with agriculturalists versus pastoralists, Neolithic pioneers, based on geographical and climatic correlations. Our results suggest a later westward dispersal than the Neolithic farming expansion and raise questions about the cause of this dispersal. So, I mean, in short, you have haplogroup J radiating or migrating from what is known as the Near East into places like mainland Greece, the island of Crete, and the Aegean Sea region coming in times past. It says more sampling of ancient populations are needed to establish the presence and frequency of haplogroup J in the Aegean and neighboring regions. However, the great time depth of its presence in the Caucasus/Iran, together with its low frequencies absence in Neolithic Greece and Anatolia, and its appearance in the samples of our study, leads us to believe that it may have accompanied the genetic admixture, Neolithic Iran and Caucasus hunter-gatherer related, that seems to have affected all populations in our study. Thus, the Y chromosome turnover that occurred in Central Europe during the Bronze Age may also have occurred in the Aegean with a different set of incoming lineages. So, so far we covered, shout out to my brother Kevin Popel, that these people were involved early Neolithic Italy, early Bronze Age Italy, and they were involved with the people known as the Etruscans. And now we're dealing with the Minoans and the Mycenaeans. And again, a lot of Afrocentrics love jumping on the Minoan and Mycenaean thing because they like to push this idea that Minoans and Mycenaeans are somehow Black Africans or Sub-Saharan Africans. And again, that's not true. And that just comes from the idea that Minoans and Mycenaeans are somehow Hamites. Again, a lot of these ideas that we have are derived from scientific racism. These things existed in the 19th century. You got to eliminate these things because it's not really based off the empirical data. All right, so we covered those. Now we're going to move on from the Minoans and the Mycenaean people we're going to move on to the Israelite sample. And we've already dealt with this as well in prior episodes. But the first verified ancient Israelite sample belongs to haplogroup J2. So, not only that they are included with the Mycenaeans, Minoans, and Etruscans, they also are included with the early Israelite population. It says here, and Canaanites begat Abraham. The highlight of the very partial results is that the Y chromosome in the man belongs to the J2 haplogroup. So again, this made history last year. Um, the war that was going on in the Middle East, the attack that happened to Israel, slowed the process of publishing the actual paper that came after this to deal with it. But nonetheless, it was released on Haaretz that what they found was J2. Again, J2 is a very significant haplogroup as far as world history. A lot of you guys read history about the Israelites. Y'all read history about the Etruscans, especially in the sphere. They love talking about those people groups, and J2 plays a part in all of them. J2 plays a part in all those people. Whether you believe they were, they had a different skin gradation, whether they were dark or they were white, the point is that the ancestry is there. That they dealt with these people. They were a part of these people. They were one of these people. It says here, a group of closely related DNA sequences that is believed to have originated in the Caucasus or Eastern Anatolia. A vast area including modern-day Eastern Turkey, northwest Iran, Armenia, Georgia, Azerbaijan, and southern Russia. This is important because, as mentioned, researchers have already mapped the DNA of ancient Canaanites, showing that they had a strong ancestral connection to modern-day Jewish and Arab populations. That research, published in Cell in 2020, also showed that the Canaanites in the Middle and Late Bronze Age, before the emergence of Israelite identity, descended from a mix of Neolithic inhabitants of the Levant and a group that immigrated from the Caucasus or Eastern Anatolia. We already know the J markers would be the ones immigrating, and the Neolithic inhabitants of the Levant would have E markers there as well, and also some T markers. So this migration was already in motion in the early Bronze Age, around 2900 to 2500 BC. It's also visible archaeologically, with pottery from this period exhibiting strong influences from Anatolia and the Caucasus. It continued in the Middle Bronze Age, as seen in the study of ancient DNA of individuals from Megiddo and other places, and is evident in the mention of in historical texts of Canaanite officials in the Late Bronze Age, with names that are not Semitic and originate in northeastern Middle East. Finkelstein says, while it's too early to draw conclusions based on limited data from a single Israelite sample, it is of note that the first temple period individual from Kiryat Yearim still carried the same genetic variation that the Canaanites displayed centuries earlier, which they in turn had inherited from the excuse me. I'm sorry, y'all. I got a little bug. Inherited from the Caucasian newcomers. As limited as it is, we cannot ignore this piece of evidence that there is a connection between the genetic background of this person at Kiryat Yearim in the first millennium BCE and the Canaanites in the second millennium BCE. Finkelstein says, it is not a complete surprise because we have evidence from other lines of inquiry, but it is another small piece of evidence showing that the genetic pool is the same. Of course, at this time, we cannot say if this is representative of the entire population. So again, the paper is telling you that J2 was there. It does not tell you everybody's genetic makeup, but they were still Israelites. They're still there. They're still a part of it. Sorry, y'all. You got to bear with me this morning. And again, this is the title of the paper. And first, archaeologists extract DNA of ancient Israelites. I mean, you guys should be used to this paper by now. I don't know how many times we brought this up on the channel, but it's been brought up quite a few times. I'll give you that one there. Boom. So we dealt with the Israelites. Now let's deal with the people of Socotra. Share this time. So medieval DNA from Socotra points to Eurasian origins of an isolated population at the crossroads of Africa and Arabia. Socotra, an island situated at the mouth of the Gulf of Aden in the northwest Indian Ocean between Africa and Arabia, is home to 60,000 people, subsisting through fishing and semi-nomadic pastoralism who speak a modern South Arabian language. Most of what is known about Socotra history derives from writings of foreign travelers who provided little detail about local people, and the geographic origins and genetic affinities of early Socotra people has not yet been investigated directly. Here we report genome-wide data from 39 individuals who lived between approximately 650 and 750 CE at 6 locations across the island and document strong genetic connections between Socotra and the similarly isolated Hadramaut region of coastal South Arabia that likely reflects the source of peopling of Socotra. Medieval Socotra can be modeled as deriving approximately 86% of their ancestry from a population such as that found in the Hadramaut today, with the remaining approximately 14% best proxied by an Iranian related source with up to 2% ancestry from the Indian subcontinent, possibly reflecting genetic exchanges that occurred along with archaeological documented trade from these regions. In contrast to all other genotype populations of the Arabian Peninsula, genome level analysis of the medieval Socotra is consistent with no sub-Saharan African admixture dating to the Holocene. And I want to bring that out as well, before we reveal the haplogroups associated with this, because what people will do is they will surface dwell on this topic. We're going to come right back to this. And when you look at Socotra people, this is what they look like. So what people will do, oh, minor Socotra people look like this. They got darker skin variants. They must be of the sub-Saharan African variety, and they're not. They're not. Again, just seeing dark skinned people. Let me blow this up real quick. Just because you see dark skinned people or people with a brown gradation of skin color does not automatically tell you what part of the world they came from, which most people always point towards south of the Sahara to say that. And it's just because we're not well versed and educated on these things, and we're still trying to use crude methods to determine ancestry, like race. But as you can see, these people are heavily pigmented. They range, lighter brown, some darker brown, and these people most likely had this skin coloration for thousands of years. Thousands of years. Okay, so come on, y'all. We got to get out of that mind frame. Again, it says here the genome level analysis of medieval Socotra is consistent with no sub-Saharan African admixture dating to the Holocene. This deep ancestry of people from medieval Socotra in the Hadramaut is also unique in deriving less from early Holocene Levantine farmers and more from groups such as late Pleistocene hunter-gatherers from the Levant, not two fiends. And again, if I could pull up Haplogroup here, and I got it loaded here somewhere, we do see J2B and the Levant in the Middle Bronze or Early Bronze, 3725, 3725. You do see J2B in that region, at least in Israel. And we also see it in Iran 9,921 years ago. So we do see these markers there in that region. So let's go back. So it says again, deep ancestry of people from medieval Socotra in the Hadramaut is also unique in deriving less from early Holocene Levantine farmers and more from a group of such late Pleistocene hunter-gatherers from the Levant and other mainland Arabians. This attests to the migration of our early farmers having less impact in southernmost Arabia in Socotra and provides compelling evidence there has not been complete population replacement between the Pleistocene and Holocene throughout the Arabian Peninsula. These people, again, like we read earlier with the Israelites, these people would have came from the Caucasus region originally mixed with the autochthonous women of the Levant, and that's how they pick up these Neolithic or Pleistocene Natufian signals. It says medieval Socotra harbored a small population that showed qualitatively different marriage practices from modern Socotra, with first cousin unions occurring significantly less frequent today. Anyway, just for anybody that doesn't know what Socotra is, hold on, let me see if they have a picture right here. There's Socotra. It's right there, off the Horn of Africa. and the Arabian coast. You can see. And they show you the burials that they found, where they were, and whatnot. All right. So, the four islands and the two rocky outcrops of the Socotra Archipelago are situated in the northwest Indian Ocean at the mouth of the Gulf of Aden, approximately 380 kilometers south of Arabian Peninsula and 250 kilometers northwest of the Horn of Africa. Socotra, the largest island, is renowned for endemic biodiversity and rich resources that have long attracted mariners and traders. Today, it is home approximately 60,000 people with distinctive language, culture, and traditions who subsist primarily through fishing, semi-nomadic pastoralism, and the cultivation of date palms. Modern Socotra have cultural and genetic links to Arabia, Southwest Asia, and East and North Africa, but most of what is known about their deeper history derives from the writings of foreign traders. Importantly, our understanding of Socotra past is now also increasing through the archaeological research. The Hadramaut, a region of southern Arabia consisting of present-day eastern Yemen and a small part of southern Saudi Arabia, has the strongest evidence of close connections to culture since at least the first centuries of the Common Era. Ceramics from Hadra, located on Socotra's north coast, are similar to those from Wadi Hadramaut Valley in the eastern Aden Yemen, while inscriptions in the Hawk Cave on Socotra's north coast attest to strong southern Arabian influence beginning in the 2nd century before the Common Era. And similarities between the dome-shaped structures on Socotra and those in Hadramaut may suggest links as far back as the second half of the first millennium BCE. The earliest account of people on Socotra is in the Periplus written in the mid-1st century CE by an anonymous Greek trader from Egypt, who reported that the island was ruled by Hadramaut Kingdom and leased to the Arabian merchants. So what are we doing? Because eventually we're going to reveal the wide DNA of these people. Because we already dealt with Israelites, we dealt with Minoans, Mycenaeans, Etruscans, and now we're dealing with Southern Arabians. Again, these people have a vast history, and they trekked across several lands, as we're seeing here. It says here, consistent with the hypothesis that early inhabitants of Socotra were South Arabian tribespeople who harvested frankincense during the height of the Hadramaut kingdom's power. Furthermore, the Socotra language is closer to the Shirit or Shari Jabali language of Dhofar, the region of southern Oman bordering Mara. Both are modern South Arabian languages, not closely related to the Arabic spoken elsewhere in Arabia. Socotra also played an important role in ancient long-distance trade networks, and there is extensive archaeological evidence of foreign traders on Socotra who visited the island while traveling along maritime routes that linked Arabia with Persia, India, and East Africa. Periplus reported that Arab, Indian, and Greek traders settled on the north coast of Socotra, while Cosmas, a Greek traveler of the 6th century CE, reported that Christian missionaries from Persia settled on the island in the mid-1st millennium CE. Although texts from this period surely reflect the biases of their authors, they are worth noting, especially when corroborated by other lines of evidence. Excavations of South Asian ceramics on the western end of Socotra also attested the presence of Indian traders at the time. Inscriptions from the Hawk Cave record traders and travelers from Roman Egypt, Palmyra, Actium, Western India, Bactria, Gandhara, and ancient civilization center in northwest Pakistan between the 2nd century BC and 6th century CE, drawn here by the supply of aloes, incense, and dragon's blood. The presence of foreign traders raises questions about the extent and nature of their interaction with local people, and ancient DNA provides a direct way to test whether this included genetic exchange. Results and discussion. We screened 50 skeletal elements from Typhony across 6 locations around Socotra for DNA. Notice this is how it's done. This is how we unveil ancestry. We don't say, "Oh, do you fit this curse?" or "Let me read this verse to tell you who you are." No, this is how you do it. Y'all use every other method as DNA, except DNA testing. This is how you test ancestry. Connectivity across human groups. Anyway, it says across 6 locations of culture for DNA. A typhon is a geographical formation resembling a small cave that has round edges and smooth concave walls that forms part of the natural karst landscape. Both historically and today, Socotra have used typhony for storage, living quarters, animal shelters, and places of burying the dead. We analyzed a tooth from each individual in most cases, and in the DNA-rich petrous mold when possible. Cortical bone from long bone shafts was analyzed if no cranial remains were present. Fragmented skeletal materials was collected to minimize disruptions to the burials. We obtained genome-wide ancient DNA data passing quality control for 39 individuals across 15 to phony, but excluded from most population genetic analysis 7 individuals with very low coverage data. An additional 4 individuals who are the lower coverage first degree relatives of another person in the data set. The individuals we report here lived as early as 641 to 668 calibrated CE, and mostly during the medieval period, 7th to 15th century CE, with one dating to the modern period, 1660 to 1950 CE. We merged the new ancient data, DNA data, with previously published ancient data from Africans, Eurasians, and present-day people from around the world whose genomes have been shotgun sequenced or enriched for sequence covering set at 1.2 million single nucleotide polymorphisms, or SNPs. We also merged the new data with the AFI metrics human origins, SNP genotyping data from the modern populations, including 7 groups from Yemen and groups from other parts of Eurasia and Africa. The Socotra gene pool changed a little over a millennium, so over 1,000 years. We used the PCA to visualize how the genomes of medieval Socotra relate to previously published people. Most Socotra fall in a tighter cluster, suggesting that the presence of foreign traders across approximately 1,000 years had little genetic impact, or that any impact was relatively homogeneous. Medieval Socotra ancestry is qualitatively similar to that of some present-day Yemenite groups, but not others, who appear to have much higher proportion of sub-Saharan African-related ancestry. Relative to other ancient individuals, the medieval Socotra fall nearest to ancient people from the Levant and ancient Egyptians, mostly Levantine-related ancestry, but are shifted toward people with Iranian-related ancestry. I'm going to see why that's the case. Individual I21109 dated to 641 to 668 CE is shifted furthest away from the main cluster. We use the pairwise QP wave to evaluate whether every pair of individuals can be modeled as descending from the same ancestral sources relative to the reference population set, and find that except for 121109, all Socotra individuals are consistent with forming a single genetic group. In pairwise comparisons, I21009 is rejected as forming clade with all but 5 other individuals, and also rejected forming clade with a pool of Socotra. So we removed this individual from the pool we call Yemen Socotra. So they only had one individual that was the outlier. Admixture analysis showed that the medieval Socotra, like most present-day groups from Yemen, as well as Saudi and Bedouin B, have a majority component, bright green, that is maximized in late Pleistocene, Natufian hunter-gatherers from the Levant, and is inferred to high proportions in other Arabian and Levantine groups, and some Africans from North and Northeast Africa who have substantial West Eurasian-related ancestry. The Socotra additionally harbor an Iranian-associated component. Most distinctive about the Socotra admixture profiles is that lack of an early European-like component, otherwise found almost ubiquitously in people from Europe, Anatolia, Levant, Arabia. They also have less of a sub-Saharan African component than modern Arabians. Across the Socotra, we detect a minor contribution from a component maximized in some South Asian populations, consistent with records of Indian traders on the island, although we cannot reject the hypothesis that this component is wholly Central Asian in origin. All right, so let's move on to the demographic impact of early Levantine farmers. To investigate the proportion of highly differentiated ancestries in the gene pools of Yemen, Socotra, or present-day people from Arabian Peninsula, or Bedouins, we carried out ancestry modeling using QP-Atom. We use populations deeply diverged in time as proxies for ancestry sources, because few, if any, modern populations are unadmixed descendants of populations that lived even a millennium ago in this region. And we keep telling you guys, side note, this is me talking, and we keep telling you guys you can't always use modern population density, because modern population density could trick you, because it's rare to find people that are unadmixed. Most people admix. Most people move. Most people migrate, especially when they go, if a male group goes somewhere else, they're going to mix with the women there. If a woman group goes somewhere, a female group goes somewhere else, they're going to mix with the autochthonous and native men there. There's no way to avoid that. So just going strictly off modern population density is not the way. And for newcomers on the channel, modern population density is basically the people that live there today. All right. So it says archaeological evidence has supported the hypothesis that late Pleistocene hunter-gatherers associated with the Natufian culture inhabited the Arabian Peninsula as well as the Levant, and the early formers carrying Neolithic Levantine Anatolian related ancestry later spread into Arabia and had some demographic impact. Although the proportion of ancestry this population contributed is a topic of debate. Genetic analysis of present-day groups from the Levant and Arabia show that Natufian hunter-gatherers appear to share more alleles with Arabians than with Levantine populations. However, a model in which all Levantine Anatolian-related ancestry in Arabia is derived from a former related source is also consistent with the data. To test the hypothesis that people in Arabia may harbor variable Levantine Anatolian-related ancestry, we applied the QP atom and framework that models present-day Arabians or Arabians-related groups and the Socotra as mixtures of ancient populations shown in previous work to be useful surrogates for ancestry found in the regions, plus an African-related source. Fitting models require ancestry from ancient Levantine Anatolian, ancient Iranian, and African-related sources. The Levantine Anatolian ancestry in most Arabian or Arabian-related groups can well be modeled either using a dual source of Natufian hunter-gatherers, Israel Natufian, plus Neolithic Anatolian farmers, or alternatively using Neolithic Levantine farmers, Levant PPNB, as a single source. This fit is consistent with Neolithic Levantine farmers, representing a genetic intermediate between Natufians and Neolithic Anatolian farmers. We fit a model for Neolithic Levantine farmers as having 60.5 plus or minus 6% Natufian related and 39.5 plus or minus 6% Neolithic Anatolian farmer related ancestry. In contrast to the majority of Arabian related groups, models using Neolithic Levantine farmers as a single source of the Levantine Anatolian related ancestry in Yemen Socotra are a poor fit. However, a four-source model where Natufians are approximately 2/3 of the total Levantine Anatolian ancestry and Neolithic Anatolian farmers are a proxy for the remaining 1/3 fits the data. In fact, a model without an African-related source fits the Socotra data. And this more parsimonious model, Natufians fit as a source for over 3/4 of the total Levantine Anatolian related ancestry in the Socotra gene pool. The inferred relative ancestry proportions of Natufian ancestry and the Neolithic Anatolian farming related ancestry for the medieval Socotra are higher than the inferred proportions of Natufian related ancestry and Neolithic Anatolian farming related ancestry in the present day Yemeni population, not from the Hadramaut. This implies the poor fit is driven either by slightly more Natufian related ancestry in Yemen Socotra, or alternatively by excess genetic drift shared between Natufians and Yemen Socotra that is not shared to the same extent between Natufians and other Arabians. In either case, we detect the effects of substructure among late Pleistocene and early Holocene Levantine populations, with medieval Socotra receiving relatively more ancestry from ancient groups closer to the sampled Natufians. Two present-day Arabian groups, Yemeni Desert and Yemeni Desert II, both from the Hadramaut region, but split into subgroups because of variation in sub-Saharan African related ancestry. Proportions also show a signal of SS Natufian related ancestry. Like Yemen Socotra and Yemeni Desert cannot fit with Neolithic Levantine farmers as a single Levantine Anatolia related source. Instead, can only be modeled with dual sources of 42% Natufian related ancestry, 24% Neolithic Anatolian farmer related ancestry. Results are qualitatively similar but less clear for Yemeni Desert 2, plausibly because of the reduced power of discern distinctive ancestry due to higher proportions of sub-Saharan African ancestry. The pattern of genetic similarity between these groups in Socotra is consistent with the archaeological evidence that Socotra was likely people from and maintained strong connections with the Hadramaut. And is also consistent with the studies of uniparental markers that point to similarities between Socotra and non-Arabic speaking groups living in southern Arabian Peninsula. By contrasting from parts of Yemen were plausibly closer in contact with other parts of the Arabian Peninsula and regions further afield, as well as a group of present-day Saudi, can be fit either with Neolithic Levantine farmers or with Natufians plus Neolithic Anatolian farmers, suggesting that much of all Levantine Anatolian-related ancestry derives from a former related source in these areas. This is consistent with a reduced displacement of hunter-gatherer related ancestry and ancestral gene pool of people who live in Hadramaut and medieval culture relative to people from other parts of Arabia, thus providing the strongest evidence to date that there has not been complete population replacement between the Pleistocene and Holocene throughout the Arabian Peninsula. While the movements of Levantine farmers impacted the cultural archipelago relatively less than most of Arabia, the presence of both Anatolian Neolithic farmer and Iranian related ancestry in Socotra gene pools attest to additional gene flow. These ancestors could have arrived at least part as a package from any of several different places. One possibility is that these ancestors reached Socotra through later gene flows from events from the Levant, as previous work has documented. Increased Anatolian Neolithic farmer and Iranian related ancestry in the Levant beginning in the Chalcolithic period, with a further increase in Iranian ancestry through the Bronze Age. Again, because we're getting closer and closer to the reveal of the Y chromosome, we know that people from the Transcaucasus region came south and then made their way into Levant during the Copper Age and the Bronze Age. And then we know eventually they make their way into Arabia. And that's why these people have these signals of autosomes that are related to Natufians and early Anatolian forms. That's why we see it. It's just giving a tale of their migration. It says here, we attempted to model Yemen Socotra using Chalcolithic or Bronze Age Levantine people as a source along with Natufians, but found that additional Iranian-related ancestry was still required to fit the data. As Socotra was also part of key maritime trade routes that connected Arabia with India and Persia to the east and the eastern Mediterranean to the west, it is possible that either or both parts of this trade network had some genetic impact on the medieval Socotra gene pool. We attempted to model Yemen Socotra using Hellenistic Roman era Anatolians who have a mix of Anatolian Iranian ancestry as a proxy for first millennium CE, Eastern Mediterranean traders as a source, and also found the fitting models again require additional Iranian related ancestry. While we cannot completely rule out the Levantine people, Eastern Mediterranean traders had some genetic impact on the medieval Socotra, our results are consistent with the Socotra receiving additional Zagros in our Caucasus related gene flow either directly from those regions or through an intermediate source not studied here. So again, all of that makes sense. The genetics here makes complete sense when you know the migratory routes and the history of these people. Now we're about to hurt some feelings. Medieval Socotra have little sub-Saharan African ancestry. Why is this big? I've already brought this up. When you look up Socotra people, this is how they look. And when most people see people with brown skin, they jump out their body and say, oh, these people have to come from sub-Saharan Africa. These people have to be Nigerian. These people have to be from Ghanaian stock. These people have to be Mende in some way. And they're not. They're not. You know, skin tone, hair texture, eye shape, nose shape, facial morphology is not exclusive to just one group. Genetics does not work like that. Remember, all human groups essentially come from the same male and female, from the same original cluster. We were all once together, and then we spread out. That means all of the variation that you see in humans today, all of the genetic variability that you see in humans today, eye color, the shape of your eye, the shape of the texture of your hair, the type of hair you have, the color of your hair, the color of your skin. That means it all derives from this small cluster that we all go back to. That's how human genetics works. That's how genetics works across animals. You know, people don't, it's so weird. Looking at dogs, most of the breeds that we have today come within the last 200 years. And that just shows the variability that a species can create because a Chihuahua and a Pit Bull share common ancestry. You know, well, they don't look the same. They have the same genetic ancestry. No matter how they look or how different they look. You know? So what people do is they find darker, like we dealt with earlier with the Etruscans. They said, oh, well, they were depicted to be darker, so therefore they're sub-Saharan African. No. Or there's just dark-skinned people there already, or people with brown skin there already. I mean, we got to get over that, man. We got to get over that. So let's go back. The medieval subculture have little sub-Saharan African ancestry. While there is archaeological evidence of African influence on subculture, for example, the Oxumite conquest is directly attested by inscriptural evidence on the Hawk Cave and imagery at the Dahasi Cave. Our data argue against substantial sub-Saharan African admixture into the medieval subculture gene pool. Specifically, ancestry models fit without an African-related source at all. African-related ancestry proportion overlap 0 and 2 standard errors in the 4-source model, while 3-source model excluding African-related source also fits. We tested the robustness of a 3-source ancestry model by rotating individuals or groups with sub-Saharan African-related ancestry into the reference set. It confirmed that there's no genome-wide signal of African-related ancestry that cannot be completely represented by Natufians, a group which has an affinity to 15,000-year-old Ibero-Mauritian hunter-gatherers from Morocco. With mitochondrial DNA, we find that the only evidence of African ancestry in medieval subculture, specifically, we identified one individual belonging to the African-associated haplogroup L3H2, today distributed primarily within the northern parts of East Africa and subculture. All other medieval subculture belong to a Eurasian associated NNR branches of the mtDNA phylogeny, attesting to the strong Eurasian genetic connection that is also detected in mtDNA data from the present day people. So again, you only have this one L3 marker. Majority of it is Eurasian maternally. And before we continue on, here's what we basically just read in a nutshell. You can see the proportions of Levantine, Anatolian ancestry, Israel Natufian Paleolithic ancestry within each group, the Bedouins, Saudi, the Jew, the Yemeni, and they pretty much have substantial amount of this ancestry. So again, this is just a tale of the migratory past of some of these people coming from the Caucasus and making their way to the Levant, and then making their way from the Levant during the Chalcolithic and Bronze Age all the way down into Arabia, and then eventually Socotra. As you can see, Socotra having 65% of Levant PPNB. Anyway, let's see. All right, we'll read this too. Medieval Socotra have Central South Asian related ancestry. To test which populations share the most genetic drift with Yemen Socotra, we computed outgroup F statistics using an indigenous population from Brazil as an outgroup rather than an African population, such as Mbuti, to isolate the non-African part of the shared genetic drift and avoid the confounding effects of Holocene-era African-related gene flow. This analysis confirmed that the medieval Socotra share more drift with Yemeni desert than any other present-day genotype population. It goes on to say, only if a population with sub-Saharan rich African ancestry is X, we show that QP atom that Yemeni desert has approximately 3% additional West African related and approximately 18% Anatolian related ancestry when Yemen Socotra is used as a proxy ancestry source. Present-day Socotra genomes are needed to determine whether and to what extent these ancestors are found in Socotra today. Approximately 86% of the medieval Socotra ancestry can be modeled by Yemeni desert, with an additional 14% proxy by a group of Iranian-related ancestry that has up to 2% contribution from the Indian subcontinent. While this ancestry can be completely modeled with present-day Iranian people as surrogate and an artificially produced population mixed with 80% or more Iranian ancestry, and the remainder Indian ancestry also provides working models. While our ability to discern specifically Indian-related ancestry is constrained by the Iranian-related ancestry shared between Central Asian and many South Asian populations, our data are consistent with a proportion of Indian-related ancestry in the Socotra gene pool that's close to our limit of definitive detection. mtDNA haplogroups U2B2, which is nearly exclusive to South Asia, further suggests a Socotra matrilineal connection to this region. Possible Iranian matrilineal ancestry is documented by the presence of haplogroup R2C in 5 ancient Socotra individuals. The high frequency R2C in medieval Socotra is distinct from the present-day mtDNA landscape, where most R haplotypes are part of the R0A clade, hypothesized to have arisen in Arabia. So the first cousin unions were infrequent in medieval Socotra. I mean, is this even a surprise for anybody watching that they were marrying their first cousins or having sex with their first cousin. I mean, that's pretty much, if we safe to say, probably ubiquitous in ancient times. Anyway, it's like many other ethnically Muslim groups, modern Socotra have a cultural preference for marriage between cousins. At least 35% up to 40% of married respondents in an ethnographic study of Socotra today were part of a first cousin union. Um, it says with a preference for patrilineal ortho cousin marriage. To determine whether mate preference was similar in the past, we examine runs on homozygosity, segments of the genome where the genetic material inherited from both parents is identical, and 14 medieval Socotra individuals of sufficient coverage. That means they have to be cousins. It says here, long ROH segments are indicative of parent relatedness within a few generations, while shorter ROH indicate relatedness deeper in the pedigree, reflecting a limited mating pool. Over half of the medieval Socotra has at least one long ROH, which has an appreciable chance of arising when parents are related at the level of fourth cousins or closer, indicating that many unions among medieval Socotra were among people who belonged to the same extended family. ROH data also provides evidence for absence of close kin unions, defined here as the first cousin or closer. Individual 120705 from Safala, who has the largest amount of ROH in our data set, is at a lower end of the range expected for the offspring of first cousins. That the individual with the most ROH is at the low end of the range expected for first cousins. It's surprising under the null hypothesis that the rate of first cousin union in medieval times is the same as today. Specifically, in a sample of 14 individuals, we would expect about 5 to be the offspring of the first cousin unions using the modern rate, and would expect that the individual with the most ROH will be the higher percentile of the first cousin contribution. Carried out simulations to assess the proportion of first cousin unions in the sample of 14 individuals, where all individuals have less ROH than the maximum data. Simulations show that the data are incompatible with the modern value of 40% cousin unions. Instead, P equals 0.05 threshold corresponds to a maximum of 26% first cousin union. So the medieval is actually less than the present. The medieval group, they only 26% of the medieval group were formed from first cousin unions, and it's more popular today. It's a culture with 40% of the cousin unions. That's actually surprising. Anyway, the data are also compatible with no first cousin unions among the 14 medieval Socotra. The total ROH in 120705 is in the 95th percentile expected for second cousin unions, which is unsurprising in a scenario that assumes that our sample of 14 medieval individuals include multiple second cousin unions. Consistent with a founder effect and consanguineous unions, there's low diversity in the Y chromosome haplogroups among the medieval Socotra males, all except one. Shout out to my boy Kevin Popel, belong to J2M172, and specifically to the same branch of J2BZ534. The outlier belongs to J1A. The near ubiquity of J2 haplogroups and paucity of J1 lineages is distinct from most present-day mainland Yemen, where J1M267 haplogroups dominate. This is consistent with the differences in the population history between Socotra and most of the Arabian Peninsula that we identified through deep ancestry modeling. We use the distribution of ROH among medieval Socotra individuals with sufficient coverage to estimate effective community size of 668 individuals. An estimate NE only in the hundreds of individuals provide further evidence of relative isolation of the Socotra population, despite location along a key trade route mating took place in limited group, resulting in a signal of genomic insularity, such as have been observed in other island communities. All right, so y'all got the point on this one. So J2 is in the medieval Socotra population. There was really no sub-Saharan introgression here. So we got one more paper we want to deal with. So far we dealt with the Romans, Italians, Etruscans, Minoans, the Mycenaeans, the Israelites. J2 was involved with, and also with Arabians and dealing with the Socotra island. So from there, we got like my boy Avery said, bonus content. So Last year, another paper came out. Let me pull that up. About Swahili. Y'all know where I'm going. Let's see if I can pull this paper up real quick. The entwined African and Asian genetic roots of medieval peoples of the Swahili coast. And within this paper, it reveals the haplogroups, the paternal, and I also believe the maternal ancestry of these people. It just popped in my head. I was like, oh, I'm forgetting about this paper, and this was a big paper last year. Okay, so yeah, so males from Persia, right here. So here's the paper here, and I'll drop it in here if anybody's interested in reading this paper themselves. Males from Persia and females from Africa. Again, this paper is entitled Entwined African and Asian Genetic Roots of Medieval Peoples of the Swahili Coast. Males from Persia and females from Africa. We tested whether male and female ancestors contributed the same proportions of African-like, Persian-like, and Indian-like ancestry to ancient individuals in the northern coastal sites in Kilwa. To carry out this analysis, we used the fact that the chromosomes 1 through 22, those are autosomes, the X chromosome, mitochondrial DNA, and the Y chromosome are passed down to subsequent generations in different ways by males and females. We cannot perform the same analysis as Songo-Manara because no individual with high-quality data fit the three-way model. So, okay, I clicked off of it. Sorry, y'all. Can y'all still see that? Yeah, y'all see it. Let's go back. It says here, we first analyzed mtDNA, analyzing 62 individuals with confidently determined mtDNA haplogroups, including relatives and individuals with low coverage genome-wide data. We find that 59 carry an L haplogroup, which in present day is almost entirely restricted to sub-Saharan Africans. The exception are a pair of first or second degree relatives from Mtwapa carrying M30D1, which in the present day is largely restricted to South Asia. An individual with haplogroup RO, remember we just read that ROA is pretty much thought to arise in Arabia, RO plus 16189, which today is characteristic of Saudi Arabia and the Horn of Africa. These results are consistent with female ancestry deriving overwhelmingly from the African sources. Analyzing male transmitted Y chromosome DNA, we find that 2 out of the 3 non-first degree related males from Manda carry haplogroup J2. And a third carried G2, so shout out to the Tay twins there. Both haplogroups are characteristic of Southwest Asia, plausibly Persia, and are largely absent in sub-Saharan Africans. The Kilwa individuals also carries J2. 14 out of the 19 males from the Mtwapa have Y chromosome haplogroups in the J family, and 2 are of the R1A haplogroup, all considered typically non-African. Only 3 of the 19 Mtwapa males, along with the Faza male, are in the E1 family, characteristic of sub-Saharan Africa. So you have J2 dealing with the people of the Swahili coast. And real quick, we'll read the abstract here. The urban peoples of the Swahili coast traded across Eastern Africa and the Indian Ocean were among the first practitioners of Islam among sub-Saharan people. The extent to which these early interactions between Africans and non-Africans were accompanied by genetic exchange remains unknown. Here we report ancient DNA for 80 individuals from 6 medieval and early modern 1250 to 1800 coastal towns, an inlet town after AD 1650. More than half of the DNA of many of the individuals from coastal towns originates from primarily female ancestors from Africa, with a large proportion, occasionally more than half of the DNA, coming from Asian ancestors. So what was going on? You had these men doing what? What were these men doing? Like I keep telling you, man, humans are humans. You know, if it's largely a male group going to a region, they're going to reproduce with the female group that's there, and vice versa. And that's what we see here in the Swahili coast. So that's your little Black history token right there. So you know those J2 markers, the people that had the J2, they seen those African women, they went crazy, man. So not only that J2 had something to do with early Italians, Romans, Etruscans, Minoans, early Greeks, Mycenaeans, Israelites, Anatolians, early European farmers, Bronze Age Levantines, and Arabians. It also has something to do with the Swahili coast. You know, there's a vast history of migration and admixture with these people. And again, when they saw those African women, you already know what was going down. Ooh, baby, I gotta get you home with me tonight. Ooh, baby, gotta get you home with me tonight. All right, y'all. So let's finish this up here. So occasionally more than half of the DNA coming from Asian ancestors. The Asian ancestry includes components associated with Persian India, with 80 to 90% of the Asian DNA originated from Persian men. Peoples of African and Asian origins began to mix about 81,000, coinciding with large-scale adoption of Islam. Before about 1500 AD, the Southwest Asian ancestry was mainly Persian related, consistent with the narrative of Kilwa Chronicle, the oldest history told by the people of the Swahili coast. After this time, the sources of DNA became increasingly Arabian, consistent with the evidence of growing interaction with Southern Arabia. Subsequent interaction with Asian African people further changed the ancestry of present-day people of the Swahili coast in relation to the medieval individuals whose DNA was sequenced. You know, before papers like this, people say, no, these people just don't want to be who they are. They hate their ancestry. They don't want to be African. No, they actually do have a history with these J2 markers and these Persians and these Arabians, right? We already know how that go, man. And that is the motherfucking deal. I appreciate you guys watching. Appreciate you guys reaching out. Stay tuned for the next episode. We got some shit we need to speak about. With that being said, the 7 candlesticks up, and I've been telling you niggas, it ain't a debate. It's a stick up gang. And them J2 markers, I got a special song for them because they was going through smashing shit. You know, they were going through, you know, getting the women. They were doing their thing, man. So let me see. I gotta leave y'all with a perfect one. Hold on, y'all. I gotta leave y'all with a perfect one here. Haplogroup J2 Appreciation Day. Shout out to my brother, Kevin Popel. You inspired this video. You asked for this video, and we delivered. And your ancestors was going through wrecking shop, migrating, and they was smashing. They was smashing African women. So here we go.
What's in your account? Young Prills are the newest out the South, so it's going down. I think you a hater if you can't see that I'm player with this diva, major leaguer, and these future alligators. Shawty got me fucked up. I'm never slipping, never tricking for no treats that ain't for free up on these streets if it ain't Halloween. And why these boppers on my dick, I swear they trying to fuck my whip bobbing, cause my paint was candy sour apple green. I pulled the baddest bras about they draws and barely wave. If you ain't winning in this game, then you barely played. If you ain't buying what you want, then you barely paid. If you didn't see me out, then you could barely hate. Cause I was doing it big all on my own. Yo, gripping wood grain and riding on chrome. Sprinkling game everywhere that I go. Old school riding, slamming my doors, reclining, shining like a you liable to freeze. Never ever bring your girl around, she liable to leave. She ain't never been around a pimp, she was dying to see a mouthpiece at its prime. The fly is still the freshest, that was fresh enough to fly. I'm majoring in pimping, I'm just rapping on the side. For the beans with the trim and the teriyaki ties. In a plane that don't take off if I don't ride. Oh, so live like pay-per-view. I show you what paper do. Make her pop it and drop it, slide back and forth like a fader do. My bezel incredible, swear my vessel was hater-proof. Only me, myself, and I is who I cater to. Cause I was doing it big all on my own. Yo, gripping wood grain and riding on chrome. Sprinkling game everywhere that I go. I was old school riding, slamming my doors, reclining, shining like a pimp's supposed. Life ain't nothing but an EQ of highs and lows, show. An EQ of highs and lows. EQ of highs and lows. Old school riding, slamming my doors, reclining, shining like a pimp's supposed. Life ain't nothing but an EQ of highs and lows. An EQ of highs and lows.